Welcome. In this video, I'm going to explain to you in very simple terms your psychology, your mind, your psyche, and how things being formulated, okay, and how you function, how you operate. You operate from the level of identity. Personality is a myth. That's one thing to remember for now. So try and let go of everything you know, okay? You operate from the level of identity. The first layer of existence really is your family, okay? So you live not from personality, not from the truth, not from your potential. You live from survival identity. How is that identity, how does it come into being? Okay, how is it developed? How is formulated? So first of all, you have no say, okay, in this at first. You're a child. You are being programmed, right? So the experience you have with your family is the most important thing. They have an idea about you when you come along. They choose everything for you. They choose your name, they choose how you live, what you eat, right? So you need to understand that who you are has been programmed into you. The experience creates a feeling of being, okay? For good and for bad. So, I'm guessing I'm not talking to people who've been loved, embraced and celebrated. So we are talking about not having your needs met. What are your needs? Safety, protection, being seen. Your first need is survival, right? Welcome to planet Earth. So in order for that survival to be ensured, you need safety, protection, being seen, and nurture, right? We sort of get it with food. So children are being fed and clothed, and most of them, they sort of survive. Some of them don't, but you know, that's another story. So feeling of being. So if that experience is a negative experience, so we are talking abuse, neglect, not having your needs met, not being seen, not being protected, not being safe, not being nurtured, right? Food is one thing. We're removing the food. We're talking deep, inner, internal experience. So if that experience is negative, and as a result of that experience, because it's connected, right? It's a sequence, it's an outcome of being unsafe. So if your needs are not being met, you are unsafe, not protected, not seen, and not nurtured. So if that's the case, right, if that's the case, then that will create an emotion, an emotional state. Okay? That emotional state will be correspondent with the experience, with how you were being treated. Okay? And what are the emotional states as a result of being humiliated, neglected, abused, etc., not having your needs met, right? Emotional state, not belonging. Fractured, broken. Right? So your body is the vessel for that. Your consciousness is the vessel for that. So that's why it's very important for you to clarify that for yourself. How have you been feeling internally? So within your body. Numb, confused. It's very important you name it for yourself. It's very important to become aware. Not belonging, fractured, broken, numb, confused, overwhelmed. That emotional state creates an emotion, right? Feeling of creates an emotion. What are the corresponding feelings with those things? Shame, guilt, hopelessness, helplessness, anger, sadness, what we're talking about here, we are talking here about emotional pain. It's heavy, it's uncomfortable, it's difficult to carry, but it goes into your body. Your body carries that. So it has been named in a lot of different ways. Shame, the most corrosive feeling to the sense of self. Guilt, heaviness, darkness, hopelessness, lack of light, lack of hope, right? Helplessness, you feeling sort of like a victim of life, which you are when you're a child. Anger, well, again, being very angry, anger has been demonized. It's so bad to be, I'm not an angry person. Well, maybe a feeling of something doesn't make you a being of that thing. So emotions are messengers. Emotions are not good or bad. Emotions are signals. Sadness, right? Again, we only tolerate positive emotions in, like, you know, like that's sad, so I'm not going to go into that. This is why we have all these problems. So it creates an emotional pain, which what you do with that emotional pain, human beings are wired for two things: seeking pleasure and avoiding pain. So what you do with those emotions as a child, you suppress them. And a lot of adults do as well. We don't know what to do with this, because what's missing in every therapy, in every like belief system, it's no one teaches you how to process your emotions, because you think emotions are negative, because you think it makes you a person who is horrible. If you're feeling horrible, so this is, you know, depending on your language and depending on your understanding, it's like the children don't have language and you know, these are codes and things. So how are you going to define it? Feeling horrible, feeling down, feeling helpless, etc., etc. But again, no one is looking internally. Everyone talks about the outside. So what you do with this, it builds the emotional pain body. Those emotions, just because you're not aware of them, they don't go anywhere. They go into your tissues and they affect your tissues. Stomach lining, joints, thyroid, muscles, etc. So a lot of psychosomatic symptoms. What is psychosomatic symptom? Is something you don't name, you don't process because your environment doesn't allow that. You don't have that skill and that's not being taught to you. So then what do? You suppress. But it stays in your system, right? And it creates emotional pain. And that emotional pain very often is then diagnosed as you can fill the gap for yourself, what you've been diagnosed with. On a mental level, on a physical level, it's all very much related. Human beings are wired for two things: avoiding pain and seeking pleasure, right? So, on this sort of lower level of consciousness, state of consciousness, and in society that is being milked, and in your family, right? Because, you know, like you want to avoid all of those. You don't want to feel them, right? And now we have this whole somatic movement. You sit with your feelings. Well, maybe shame is not yours, so you shouldn't be sitting with it. You should be disowning it, which I will teach you. Feeling guilty for things you have not done, or you had no awareness, guilt, etc. It comes from the experience. Don't stay there. Let's move on. So, how are you going to function then? If you're carrying all these things in your body, then what is your mind going to do? What is your mind going to do? Story follows state. This is everything. CPTSD, so complex post-traumatic stress disorder. This is personality disorder. This is pain body. This is depression. Anxiety. Etc. So your mind then is going to interpret those emotional states, the narrative around this state. So this is where it gets interesting, okay? People have two choices. You have two choices when you may not be aware of them, but these are the choices. You either internalize it or externalize it. So you either sort of keep that pain in and do not sort of you don't project it onto your environment, or you do, right? So again, you either harm yourself because, as I said, if you are wired for avoiding pain, and we have pain clinics, we have painkillers, like anything to stop the pain, right now. So without understanding the source of the pain, which this is where we are, this is why we are where we are. So to protect relationships with your family or whatever, you either going to think it is my fault, this is the way I am, or, so that's internalizing it, or you're going to blame. Blame is externalizing the pain. okay? And if you can't do it with the people who caused you the pain, aka your parents, your family, whatever the system, then you're going to misplace that blame onto others, right? And this is a very, very deep level where we have people who literally misplace blame. It's the immigrant's fault. It's, oh, because I'm not tall enough. Or because this is not, because you are misplacing the blame because you do it when it's possible. You're putting in a context that doesn't really have any consequences, right? So think about, so that's why a lot of people don't want to blame their parents, which I get, of course, because we are taught to worship them and we think we'd stop existing without them. But your narrative, that's why becoming conscious about being conscious is very important, because the narrative then will be reflective of those states, emotional states. So it's going to drive lower emotional states, shame, guilt, etc. It's going to drive your life. It's going to motivate your narrative, right? So how worthy you feel. Shame. Let's look at shame. What happens? This is how it's get translated through your ego. I'm useless. I'm pointless. Anything that has to do with I am, people are, the world is. Because your emotional state creates a worldview you hold, your perspective. Okay? And then, based on your perspective, you're going to act it out. Because you act out your state. You don't operate from the level of anything else but this. This is your main point of reference. So if you are feeling unworthy, right? If you hold a lot of shame, so are you going to do things that are good for you or not good for you? Are you going to look at other people as an opportunity for love or for hate? And yes, it's like you're going to self-loathe, you're going to hate yourself. And it's like this really deep process where completely unconscious, where the emotional states create a narrative about yourself and the world. So that's why becoming aware of what your body is holding is extremely important. Because from your perspective, from your worldview, which is dictated by the state, you're going to choose your behaviors. So the only period of time where you don't have a choice is your childhood. But when it comes to your adulthood, raising your consciousness comes from owning yourself, comes from accepting yourself, comes from choosing yourself and upgrading the idea of the self, right? Raising your consciousness. Because it's part of your story, but it's not the whole story. You are extremely powerful and there is a lot that could be done, right? So going with the flow of your consciousness, and you are becoming aware as we speak. So start observing. become aware, sit down, put your phone down, and start observing your inner reality. And becoming a watcher is the whole point here. And changing that relationship. That's why I don't understand why people say, oh, it's so difficult. Well, whatever you're doing, it's more difficult. Because anything other than higher states of consciousness is painful. Anything other than processing your past and letting it go, because you can only let go of something if you are ready. If you don't want to go there, the quickest way to forget is to remember. And then when you remember, when you process enough, then you can let go. So you don't live in the past. You don't feel sorry for yourself forever. So think about it. Start observing. Write down your thoughts. Know that your ego, yeah, and everyone has an ego, is narrating your experience from the past. So let's look at the level of the mind. This is what everyone talks about, the mindset thing. No, I mean, it's shallow. You can't force your body out of something. But this is where we operate in this society. It's all the mind, right? Without understanding that body and mind are one. So if the body has had a lot of difficult experiences and it's lower emotional states, then the main force to recalibrate through is to understand that you have an ego, and your ego can be inferior or superior. This is victimhood. This is I'm the best. This is narcissistic as we know it, right? So entitled, etc., to dominate people, to control them, to manipulate them. And this is the narrative of my pain is the biggest pain. My pain is the biggest pain. Right? That's all you need to know. It's not that complicated. And this is what feeds, I have trauma, this is what feeds the healing business and the healing industry, right? And it keeps it alive, very much alive, and it keeps people stuck, right? I'm the victim, I need to. And when we're talking collectively, this is where society is, political system, a lot of businesses, etc., is based on this. We are the best. If you identify with this, or you identify with this, right? No other way. That's the lower level of your mind. So that's another filter through which you look at the world. So if you are holding a lot of shame and guilt that is not even yours, then you're going to feel like this, and that your mind, your ego will be, yes, you are the victim. You are the victim. It comes again with an income, address, story, right? Because the mind creates the story around the state. It's almost like you internalize the emotional state, and in here you externalize. I will do it because I can. I'm entitled. So it's really important to meet your ego, right? That's the first probably meeting with your ego, because people, I don't have an ego. No, you do. And it's not about getting rid of your ego or dissolving the ego, it's about changing the relationship with your ego. So actually you can't change anything if you're not aware of it, right? So it's like a map of your psyche. And these are the first layer. And because in here it comes the belief system, right? What I can, and what I can't do. What is possible, what's not possible. So if you feel like a victim, then that's very limiting. And it's pain, and it's living in pain, living in those emotional lower states. If you are here, if you, again, like we know narcissistic people, they know everything, right? So again, you externalize, you think your opinion is the most important opinion. You have the right to be manipulating people. You have the right to be telling people. So it's how to do and what's right and what's wrong. And obviously, you're never wrong. You never apologize. You're self-obsessed. You're in love with yourself completely. You're never vulnerable. You don't apologize. You're not accountable. You're not accountable in either of those, right? Because in here it's always like it's never your fault, because if life happens to you, that's really a narcissism is really a state of consciousness. And in here it's like I can do whatever I want because I can do whatever I want. I can say whatever I want and do whatever I want. And that is obviously that when that is very, very extreme, that happens, then if the IQ is high here, if the person has high IQ, so they're sort of smart and they are malignant and they are psychopathic, then this is a perpetrator, a predator things, predator calibration, like constellation. So I can do anything, people are stupid, so really grandiose, like you are entitled, you can do things, right? Which if you were, you wouldn't be listening, because this person doesn't learn because they know everything. Unfortunately, people, this is vulnerable narcissism, this is grandiose narcissism. These people are looking for victims, and when they're looking for victims, they're looking for a very specific profile of a person. So the person has to be empathic, the person has to be people-pleasing, and the person has to be really, really desperate, right? Not aware, really, like having external locus of evaluation, because it's a very strong sense of self, and people with no sense of self, people pleasers or people who are really fragile, they are perfect victims to those people, or really kind and empathic, and they never, they don't think, it's like unicorns and rainbows, like everyone is good and everything is good, without looking behind the scene, and that's another training. But these people are looking for people who are not aware and they can't see behind the scenes, so they're very easily manipulated. So most people are somewhere in the middle when it comes to their ego, but when it comes to their lower emotional state, that's why it's so important to heal, which we are doing with consciousness, because you are going to fall for either of those. And it will get used that you can live your life like this. You can live like a victim. You can be vulnerable. A victimhood is now sort of incentivized. You can live like this, and you can live like this. It depends what you value and where you're going. Because it becomes very painful either way. And you can't have a good life from those extremes. You cannot. So the whole idea here being is to change your relationship with who you think you are. And upgrade your identity, because you're just like knowing from which. But there is a potential for anything. Depends how you position yourself with your awareness. You know, you can achieve a lot. A lot of businesses, banking, business. Because like no empathy, I can do anything, I can manipulate people. People are stupid, I'm the best. Whatever comes out of your mouth, it's the best, right? So yes, you can achieve a lot, depending whether you're playing the short game or long game. If you're playing the short game, then go for it. If you playing the long game, don't. And life is long in some ways, it's short in others, right? But this is a very destructive force. This is a very destructive force. It's very dark, it gets really shadow, it gets really dark, right? If you're Machiavellian, you're plotting. So you're either going to end up being killed in prison, or, you know, because someone will come after you. And you just die inside anyway. And on a soul level, I would like both of these things, both of these extremes, people are not in touch with their soul at all. So again, disconnection from the soul, disconnection from higher purpose and your legacy. So yeah, which game are we playing here? That's very important to know. What is your game? Right? How do you want to be remembered? Like, do you want, this is a choice you have. This is a choice that people have and no one talks about it. You can either behave in your life in a way that people miss you when you are gone, or people exhale and it's a relief when you're gone. On a very sort of micro level and macro level. And the real flex today is how many people can you elevate? How many lives can you touch in a positive way? So this is a destructive force. Both of those forces, any extreme in life is destructive. So this is the construction of survival identity. You need to realize where you are. And then you need to make a different choice. That comes from a decision, from being courageous enough to reorganize your inner reality and being willing to really own it, really own it. So, see you in the next model.